Hello and welcome to another edition of my Become Unstoppable interview series. And as ever, I don't think I've let you down yet. I've got another amazing guest, but we've actually got a guest from America today. So we've gone worldwide for you today. So this is Kris. But Kris, would you like to introduce yourself, my love?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Am I your first American guest? Is
I
that what
think
I'm
you
hearing?
might be. I think you might be.
Wow, I'm so honored. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. So I'm a coach, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a podcast host, I'm a television host. I am the author of a book called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by 3 people who were in the film The Secret: Marci, Shimoff, Bob Doyle, Michael Beckwith. It's also
Amazing.
endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and Anita Morjani, who wrote Dying to Be Me. Let's see. My coaching business is called Change Your Mind with Kris Ashley. My podcast is also called Change Your Mind with Kris Ashley, and my TV show is called Beyond Reality. Podcast focuses on personal development, spirituality, and science. The TV show focuses more on the metaphysical aspect of our reality. And I'm also the co-director of the Los Angeles Tribune Leadership Academy. And I've been so honored to share the stage with people like Les Brown and Dr. Joe Vitale and Sharon Lechter and Joseph McClendon and Jim Kwik. So
Wow.
I've been so blessed to be around such incredible thought leaders. And I'm so excited to be here with you today.
It's amazing. And what she's forgot to mention, while she's doing all that, she's got a little baby too.
Yeah. I have a 13-month-old son.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. But before we do that, and before I ask you my question, I'll just introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name's Julie, and I'm the founder of Millieside Therapy and Coaching. And my official title, I guess, is a super conscious hypnotherapist. But basically what I do is, my niche really is looking after stressed people with stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and helping them to get to the root cause of what's going on for them. And when we're feeling stressed, then that has a massive impact to our mind and to our body. And it's trying to find the root cause of that, but also trying to fix some of the other things along the way that have all been trapped inside your body, so that we can free you, so that you can live an unstoppable life. So I get people from stuck to unstoppable. So there you go. And I work with people on a one-to-one basis, and I've got an amazing group program. And obviously I've got my interview series. I've got a book coming out as well soon, which is not ready yet. But I'm really excited for that as well. So before we say anything else, Kris, I need to ask you my famous question. What would you say what does being unstoppable mean to you?
Yeah, I love that question. To me, I think it's having confidence in yourself, in your abilities, in your talents, having no doubt at all. And I think knowing that no matter what happens, you can design the life of your dreams. And no matter what life throws at you, you can use it to learn, to grow, to level up, to fail forward, and to spin it into something that ends up helping you out in the long run. So, it doesn't matter what other people's opinions are. It doesn't matter your past circumstances, current circumstances. You know that you have that path forward.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. It is quite an interesting question, and everybody comes up with something, their own little spin on it, but it is quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's I think so many people get caught up in themselves, stuck in their lives, and they don't always understand how they can get out of it. And they don't know sometimes that there's a way out of it. And I think hopefully by the end of this interview as well, when we both have shared a little bit of our stories, then hopefully it gives some hope to other people that we can all change, but we just have to want to. But the old saying is, isn't it, if you don't change, nothing changes. So, and a lot of people, I think, feel that the world owes them a favour, but it's not like that. If you want to make changes, if you want something exciting to happen in your life, then you have to be the one that makes that decision to move forward. So you've given us quite a long list, actually, an amazing list of the things that you're doing right now. Do you want to just give us a little bit of an overview of how you ended up where you are now? How did you end up doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like many people who are out there trying to help others, my story started with my own trauma. When I was 12 years old, I was sexually abused by a family member. And I had this really big, tight knit, extended Italian family. And when they found out what happened to me, many of them disowned me. And I was getting
Wow.
calls and letters telling me they didn't love me anymore and I wasn't their family anymore. And it left me with severe PTSD, horrible
Mm.
self image, all of these negative, low vibration emotions like anger and shame and guilt that as a young adolescent, I didn't know how to cope with. Most adults don't know how to cope with those types
No.
of emotions. And I was in a really bad place. I was getting in trouble in school. I was lashing out. I was doing drugs. And my life totally changed when someone handed me a book. And what this book did is it showed me that there were other ways of thinking about reality, of experiencing the world around us. And I remember turning the pages and thinking like, wow, this feels like truth. And I like to say it was like a sleeper agent, right? Like something inside of me just woke up. And then when I finished that book, I started reaching for more. And I just became insatiable. I was devouring every metaphysical, spiritual, new age, personal development book I could get my hands on. I found teachers to study under. I was going to all these workshops and retreats. And I thought I was unlocking the mysteries of the universe, but I was really also doing the hard inner work because I was doing all these different healing modalities too. My life did a 180 and it totally changed. And then the other side of my story is that as I changed my mind and started to get better, my mother started to get worse because she didn't have these books and healing modalities and teachers that I did. And her family had been ripped down the seams. So it started to manifest as physical illness for her.
Mm.
She developed cancer. She developed all of these really bizarre afflictions that her doctors couldn't even explain. And so they did what they do. They gave her pills and then they gave her pills for the side effects of those pills. And they're just kind of throwing anything at the wall, hoping something would stick. And at the height of it, she was on a fentanyl patch. She was on Dilaudid, which is another pretty intense narcotic. She was on like 10 other pills every day. And she would sleep for all but a few hours of daylight. She would nod off at the dinner table. She fell down all the time. She would forget conversations we had just had. And that lasted almost 15 years. So I had this compounded guilt that I had destroyed my family and broken my
Mm.
mother. But I believe everything happens for a reason. And I realized later that my mother was my biggest teacher because for every step she took deeper into depression and illness and victimization, I climbed in the other direction out of that dark tunnel because I saw firsthand what happens to a human body and spirit when they make that choice, because it is a choice. And then I saw what was happening to my own body and spirit as I was changing my mind and making a different choice. And I made a promise to myself that I would do everything I could to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I always prioritize my health. And I'm still reading like a book a week and I'm still studying under everyone. Like the learning doesn't stop, by the way. But after this was in 2002 when I had this, what I call my spiritual awakening. And after a couple of decades, really immersed in that, I decided I wanted to give back. So I took a life coach training with Marci, who's phenomenal. If you don't know her, she's one of 3 people who were mentored directly by Bob Proctor. She was the one who officiated his funeral. She's incredible. And I wrote my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It got great endorsements and launched the business, launched the podcast. And then everything took off from there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions, right? And I've written them. Well, I don't know if I can read what I've written because I just scribbled them and tried to make it look like I wasn't writing. But first question is, what was the book, the first book that turned your life around?
It's called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, and it's by Drunvalo Melchizedek. And there's so few people that are like, yes, I love that book. But it's incredible. It's in 2 different books. So book 1 is like chapter 1 through 8 or something, and book 2 is chapter 9 through whatever, 15. I don't know. And what that book did really well, and what I tried to do in my book too, is it gave a bunch of, I don't know if like breadcrumbs is the right word, but it touched on a lot of topics.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me a lot of rabbit holes to go down after it. So because of that, I was introduced to Zachariah Sitchin's work. I was introduced to Greg Braden. I was introduced to Thoth and the Emerald Tablets. I was introduced to sacred geometry. And I followed every rabbit hole, and self-healing and the law of attraction before The Secret came out. So that's kind of what I tried to do in my own book too, because I thought that was so valuable. It was such a great starting point. And then there were just so many different directions I could go. And then from those authors and thought leaders and books, I was able to uncover more, and I just had so much fun.
Amazing. And the other observation I kind of picked up on was when you said that you watched your mum go down that depression and self-destruct mode, I guess, but that made you kind of want to do the opposite, and which is amazing, but not that doesn't always happen to everybody, does it? Because we have the old, learned behavior, and quite often people will end up going down a similar route. What made you determined, do you think, to not do what she was doing?
There's this amazing story. Uh, some like news station covered it. I want to say like 60 Minutes or something like that. But there were these two brothers, and one was this like CEO, high executive guy of this Fortune 500 company, super successful guy, had a great family, was super happy, looked successful on paper, but successful in life. And then the other brother was in prison. And they asked the two brothers the same question that you just asked me, like, why do you think you ended up, they asked the first brother, like, why do you think you ended up so successful? And he said, oh, because my dad was an alcoholic. And then they asked the second brother, why do you think you ended up in jail? And he said, because my dad was an alcoholic. So moral of the story, and this is really what my book is about, is you can look at something from a million different perspectives. Right. And you always have a choice. Healing is a choice, just like staying sick is a choice. And, blaming other people and outside events for your suffering is a choice. And empowering yourself and taking responsibility for your own healing and your own forgiveness and becoming more conscious is a choice. So, we all have a story. We all have a past. We've all gone through trauma to some extent, or at least deep emotional turmoil. And you get to make of that what you want to make of it. So, to me, I was like, I saw what that path led to. And I saw at the same time as I was trying all these healing modalities and learning all these new things, I saw what my life was opening up. I was manifesting things into my life, like incredible things were happening. So to me, it was just motivation.
I think a lot of it is all around. We talk a lot nowadays about having emotional intelligence, don't we? And basically, that just means that we are aware of ourselves. We are aware of the power of the mind to an extent. You don't have to know loads about it, but it's about understanding, I don't know, for example, the power of our imagination, how important the words we tell ourselves are. If you don't know this stuff, then you're carrying on in that world of maybe talking terribly to yourself. One thing that I despise when I hear people say, like, my depression, my anxiety, my illness, because as soon as you own something, then you're taking it on board, and that's part of your identity. And when you start learning about emotional intelligence, then the world does open up, doesn't it? And for me, my journey started, I mean, I'm a lot older than you anyway, but my journey is relatively recent in the grand scheme of things. I don't get me wrong, I never was terrible to myself, but I lived in my head. I didn't understand the mind-body connection. And it was only when I started on my journey a few years ago that I was kind of doing, probably not to the extent that you did, of like going down every single rabbit hole, but I've been down a few rabbit holes, and it is amazing, isn't it? And it's like, oh my God, I don't think we should ever regret things, but if I was allowed one regret, it would be, I just wish I'd known about all of this a long time ago. And I think it would enhanced my life a lot more, probably would have done a lot more things. But like you said, we didn't say this, but we are where we are, isn't it? But life sends us these challenges, and that's who we become. And you could have very, very easily have gone down that self-destruct rabbit hole, couldn't you? And a lot of people probably wouldn't have blamed you. How did you kind of free yourself from, because you said earlier on, didn't you, that you felt guilt and the shame? How did you free yourself from those?
Well, I just want to reiterate, like, I did go down that self-destructive path myself, until that person handed me that book.
Mm.
And it was just trying all these different things. I learned about different types of meditation. I learned about different healing modalities. I learned about energy healing. I learned about, I mean, I'm that person that tries everything, like every healing modality, every exercise, every journaling exercise. Like I try everything, because there's always more to uncover. Right.
Mm.
And like, it's that idea of like, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I think, and this is also to speak to your point of regret not having it sooner. I think as we're ready for more things, it's like each thing we go through prepares us for the next, right?
Mm.
So it's like you might work with this teacher for weeks or months or years, and then at some point you've gotten all you can from them, and it's time to move on to the next one, right? Because if we had learned it all, if we had healed and uncovered it all, like, we wouldn't be here anymore. We'd have transitioned on to the
Mm.
next adventure, right? Because we're here to have human experiences and to learn lessons and to grow. So if we're still here, there's always more to do. And it's this spiral, right? You come back to uh, similar circumstances or things you thought like you already passed that test, right? Or you learn that lesson and then you see it from a slightly different perspective, and there's more work to do. So the journey never ends, and it was just that process that allowed me to just, and I don't want to just, for listeners, make it sound like this happened overnight. Like, remember, this is like a couple decades, this journey, and it's work. It's hard inner work. And I'm still not perfect, and I still slip up, and it happens,
Mm.
but you get different tools as you keep going.
Yeah.
So then you're like more armed each time. And that's why my answer to your question is, no matter what life throws at you, you can see every tragedy, every heartbreak, every adversity as an opportunity to grow. And you can see everyone that rubs you the wrong way as your teacher. Because when someone's your teacher, you're always growing, and everyone you meet has something they can teach you. And every circumstance you go through has something that you can learn from and grow. So I almost get excited now when challenges happen, because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. On the other side of this is going to be a lot of growth. So,
That's very true.
yeah.
That's a really lovely way of looking at it, actually. And I think when you're living in your comfort zone and you're not learning and you're not transitioning and you don't feel that resistance, then you need to stop and think why. And that's because you're not doing much, right? It's good to have that, that feeling of nervousness, excitement, whatever you want it to be. But when you just feel that there's something niggling, there's a little bit, maybe you're being triggered by someone or something, or maybe because it's not about that you've gone backwards, it's just that you might have been fearful about something and then you've kind of resolved that and you've gone forward, but because you've pushed yourself some more, there's a new lot of fear coming in, isn't there? And you've got to work through that, like you say, and process it. But as you work with new tools and techniques, then there's ways of dealing with that. And recently I've had a lot of family issues going on with like caring for ill parents and things like that, and it's been incredibly challenging from all aspects, like trying to deal with them, trying to deal with the system, trying to deal with the family dynamics. It's been challenging, but I wouldn't have come out of it or be transitioning out of it as well as I am if I hadn't have done the work that I've done on myself, and if I didn't have tools to go fall back on. Because there'll be days when you're on the phone, it's probably the same out in the States, when you're trying to get information out of people, you don't know who you're talking to, and you're just getting so frustrated. And one day I had to just I think I was sitting in here, just take myself out and just remind myself to like breathe and just, it's okay, it's fine, and all the different tools that I've learned along the way. And that's when you realize how much you've grown, because a few years ago, maybe I wouldn't have coped as well. And I think that's important, isn't it?
Totally. And I just want to speak to when you were talking about the comfort zone in the beginning, that like, yeah, your comfort zone is where dreams go to die. I love that quote. And if you don't step outside of your comfort zone and do things that terrify you, right? Do I'm afraid, as my mentor, Marci would say, then the universe or God or whatever you believe in is going to make you move anyway, right? And it's going to push you out of your comfort zone, and it's going to shake things up, and in ways that are probably going to be a lot more uncomfortable than if you had stepped out yourself. So you can't just stay stagnant for a period of time, because again, we're here to learn and grow and have experiences. So either you can push yourself out of your comfort zone and chase your dreams and do things that scare you and get that nervous anxiety, excitement that you were talking about. And by the way, anxiety and excitement are the same emotion. It's just
Exactly
how you
right. Yeah,
interpret
the
it,
feeling's the
right?
same. Yeah.
Yeah, you can use it to like break yourself down or to like amp you up. But if you don't do that, life is going to do it for you, and it's going to be a lot more uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I was thinking when you were talking just now about your, is it say he's 18-month-old, your little boy?
He's 13 months, yeah.
13 months, right? So how are you kind of hoping to bring him up in the world that you're in now? I don't know if your partner's kind of on the same sort of, in the same world as you, shall we say, because they're not always, are they? How, between the pair of you, actually, let me ask that question first. Is you and your partner, are you guys both on that kind of journey, or is it a little bit wonky?
That's funny. No one's ever asked me that on a podcast, and I've done like hundreds of these interviews.
That's because I'm really nosy.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to send him this. That's funny. I have an amazing partner, my husband. He's just so freaking awesome. He's the man of my dreams. Like, I write in my book about how I made a list of everything I wanted in the man of my dreams and put it in my phone notes and read it morning, noon, and night. And 2 weeks later, I met him, and he was
Oh,
everything he
wow.
was. I manifested him for sure. But we balance each other out. Like, he's an entrepreneur, and he has incredible drive. And he is incredibly good at letting things roll off and letting things go. He's very good. He gets like we were just kind of talking about. He loves challenges. He loves problem solving and figuring it out. Like, that's why he thrives being like having his own business, because that's kind of what a business is, right? You're just like putting out fires and you know, adjusting as you go. And he's really driven, and he's really calm, and he's incredible communicator, like amazing communicator. And I benefit so much from that. And I'm definitely the more spiritual one, and he definitely benefits uh, from that from me. Both of us, like in terms of how we want to raise our kids, both of us are really into biohacking. You know, we started following Dave Asprey back when like Bulletproof was just a blog, and he would like actually answer your questions every day. So we eat incredibly clean. We have a toxin-free home. I use my like essential oil cleaner. We take a lot of supplements. We do like the red light therapy, the cold plunges, the saunas, the meditation, the yoga. Like, we're both very active into exercising every day. So we definitely want to bring my son up with those kind of values and keep him as healthy as possible. We both really believe in communication, and that repressed emotions contribute to illness. So encouraging him to feel his emotions is really important. But we also want him to be independent, which he is very, very independent. And we also don't want to. There's that line, right? Sometimes parents kind of over coddle their kids, and then they're not really prepared for challenges. So, kind of like we've talked about, we want to like encourage him to do things that make him afraid, and to fail. And there's this. I was listening. what was it? Oh, it was Jamie Kern Lima's book, which was awesome. She was telling the story. I think it was the owner of Spanx, who every night growing up, her family would sit around the dinner table and the father would ask the kids, "How did you fail today?" And I love that so much because it made her unafraid of failure. So she could go out and be an entrepreneur. And also the way you speak to your kids before the age of 7, they're in theta brainwave state. It's hypnosis, right? They're sponges, literally. And your opinions and the things you say about them, especially in front of them to other people about them, become their inner voice. So I want to always talk about him, that he's smart and strong and loving and curious. And even things like saying like, oh, he's shy could be like could be taken negatively, right?
Yeah.
So you wanna say like, oh, he just takes a second to warm up, or he's really observant about his environment, like things like that I want to be really conscious of. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that.
parenting is something I've thought a lot about. And then there's,
I-
all the ideas, all the things where you're responsible for your kid and you're like, oh, do I vaccinate? Do I not? Like all these things. So that's just,
yeah.
it's crazy being responsible for this little life, right?
It is. I remember. I mean, my he's 25 now, and I've got a stepson as well. He's 28. I remember when we first come out of hospital, and he was sitting in the car chair thing, and we plonked him in the lounge, and we went, "What do we do now?" And I was so super paranoid that I was going to go shopping and leave him somewhere. That feeling where you go, something doesn't feel right. I feel like I've forgotten something.
It's like that Home Alone moment.
Yeah. But thankfully, I never did. But interestingly, being a parent it probably is the hardest job you'll ever do, because even if you're emotionally aware like you are, in some respects it makes it harder, because you're super worried about what you're going to say and what you're going to do, and oh god, what kind of impact that's going to have. And yeah, you can over love, you can not love enough, can't you? You can be too protective, not protective enough. It's like, I don't really know what the definition of a really good parent is, because there's always going to be some negative way that it's going to come out, and you spoil them too much, you didn't empower them. But it's about just trying to do the best you can, isn't it? And I remember a few years ago when I started doing all my training, I just said to Josh, I said, like, I'm really sorry. And he went, why? What for? I said, well, I don't know, because I would have messed you up somehow. For whatever it is, I'm sorry. But yeah, it is interesting. And you talk about, the 0 to 7, and that's what we talk about with my clients all the time. And it's because it's, as you said, it's so critical, because that's when most of our beliefs are created then, aren't they? And when we work with our clients, as you would know as well, mostly it'll go back to those very early years, won't it? When they've created feelings and emotions that actually, as an adult looking back at them, you might go, well, that's ridiculous. I don't know why I did that. But you haven't got the logic. You haven't got the developed enough brain. In fact, I think for men, isn't it 25 years of age before they're actually fully developed in the brain?
Yeah, I've heard that they develop slower than women for sure.
Oh, there's a shocker, right? I don't know what women's one is, but I do remember hearing that, and it's like, wow. But yeah, it's so important. And we talked earlier on as well about learned behavior, and that's what he's going to pick up from you too, isn't he? That actually it's okay to feel, it's okay to listen to each other, it's okay to talk, it's okay to express, because people probably still do it. But even things like don't cry when they fall over. Well, if they fall over, let them cry, because otherwise they get told that if they hurt themselves, they can't cry, which means they can't release their feelings. And as we both know, feelings that are trapped in the body will manifest in physical and psychological conditions, exactly as you said about your mum.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, we do the best we can, and you just love them and try to create a safe environment where they can always come to you with anything.
And actually, it's things like being afraid as well, isn't it? Like afraid of a spider, or insects and things like that. You're gonna, likelihood is your child's gonna be like that as well, because they've learnt it from you. And I used to have an Australian coach actually called Kamal, and he lived in the outback. And he said with his kids, he would take them out every day for a walk with no shoes on, because that's, go out into the bush, no shoes on. He said, and then when they saw a snake or something like that, then the kids would be curious, like, oh my God, look at that snake. They'd know the dangers of it, and they would know that they shouldn't try and pick it up. But if we went there and walked in there probably with shoes on and saw a snake, we'd be going, oh my God. But it's about being in nature or being in the natural environment and knowing that different things live there, and that's their environment, and teaching them not to be afraid of things. And that can be for a lot of things in life, really, couldn't it?
Yeah, totally. I love that, because it just makes me think too of like, you want them to learn things from you, because once they're in school, they're going to have so many different influences, right? All their peers, their teachers, all of these things. But if you can empower them when they're with you, and yeah, bring them in nature for sure. Play outside. Like, I want him like outside all the time, right? Like riding his bikes around the neighborhood and stuff, like not looking at screens. But I love that story. Because yeah, like then you're influencing them, you're creating confidence, right? You're nurturing their sense of wonder and curiosity. Like, to just say be afraid of something and avoid it kind of just shuts all that down.
Yeah, and it's like, well, why do you need to be afraid of a little spider? I mean, especially over here, we don't really have many killer insects. I mean, Australia, anything over there kills you, doesn't it? But I don't know about in America. But yeah, I mean, using spiders as an example, and it's like, well, they don't mainly hurt here anyway. They don't cause you any damage, so why would you be afraid of it? But that all stems back to learnt behaviour and what beliefs you've been. Because a belief, as you know, is like just something that we believe or something that we've been told we need to believe. Well, it's just a belief, isn't it? So you can turn that around, you can change things. And that's what I love about what I do. And I'm sure you're the same, the fact that how you can fundamentally change people from the inside out, and relatively easily as well, actually, once you start your process. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you worked with your clients? How did you fix them, shall we say?
Well, I mean, I also want to just, and I know you know this, but just for listeners, you can't force anyone to change, and you can't fix
No.
anyone, right? You can, and I learned this the hard way with my mom, because for a long time I wanted to fix her because I felt responsible for her brokenness. So I read like a book a week. Like, I'm just total book nerd, and now I just listen to audiobooks now that I have my kid. But I would come across a book that I thought would be helpful for her, and it wouldn't even necessarily be like a spiritual one. Um, what's like The Mind Body Connection by Johnny Sarnos is a great example. And it's all about how repressed emotions can create illness, something we've talked about already. And I live in California and she lives in Chicago. And so I would buy her these books and send them to her if I came across one I thought she would love. And she would get so offended, like angry at me, and she wouldn't read any of them. And I realized that, like, she was interpreting it as I know better than her, and I'm trying to force my opinions on her, and I'm trying to force my way of thinking on her. And that was a really good lesson, because and of course, like, I'm doing it out of like love and kindness and wanting to help, right? It's like a love language thing. Um, but I understand where she's coming from too. And it was such an important lesson, because you can't fix anyone else. You can't force anyone else to heal. You can't, and this goes for like creating a, like trying to save the world or heal a sick society. Like, your inner world creates your outer world. And if you want to heal the outside world or anyone else, you have to heal yourself first. And you level up and you rise and you get to be that beacon for everyone else. And then you can lend a helping hand if they're open for it. But what's going to happen is they're going to say like, "Oh, Julie looks really happy. Like, what's Julie doing lately?" Right? And you're going to send that ripple effect out. Like, you're going to influence your inner circle, and then maybe they come up with you and they start to influence their people, and it creates this beautiful ripple effect.
Mm.
And this goes for like fighting for change in the world. Like, you can't fight for peace. It literally just doesn't work. Like, angry people can't create a peaceful world. And there's so much of that on social media these days, people just
Yeah.
getting so angry and worked up. And like, the universe is like the Facebook algorithm. Whatever you get emotional about, it goes, oh, like they liked that. I'm going to send a little bit more of that their way. And that goes for positive emotions or negative emotions. So, I just want to throw that out there. And like, as far as working with clients, I don't work one-on-one with clients anymore. I found that I can reach a lot more people if I work with large groups. So I had a group coaching for a while. Right now I have a course, and I do a lot of, I'm doing courses with the Los Angeles Tribune as well as my own courses. And I do a lot of speaking. And I have the podcast and the TV shows. So I just found that I wasn't able to reach as many people when I worked one-on-one with clients. And the group coaching was great. And I'll probably start that up again eventually. I kind of put it on the back burner while I was raising my kid, but yeah, like you can, and by the way, like never underestimate the power of planting a seed though, right? You can plant seeds in people, but you can't force anyone to change.
Out of your kind of spiritual journey then, what would you say have been the most fun things that you've learned over the time, or what you found the most amazing?
I mean, the idea that you can create your own reality, and it's happened for me over and over and over again. And like I told you the little story about my husband, and there's been so many things like that. I don't know. The last time I ever worked for anyone, I've had my own companies for a while now, but the last time I worked for anyone, I was about to get on the job with my, I was about to get on the phone with my about to be boss, and we were going to negotiate salary. And I had done my little journaling exercise that I swear to God works every time. And I did my little journaling exercise, and I wrote down a specific salary amount that I wanted. And I was ready to negotiate, and we got on the phone, and he was like, this is what you're going to make. This is what the person who you're replacing made. This is what all the managers make. Like, he left like no room for negotiation. And normally I would negotiate, but I really wanted this job, and I was already taking a pay cut to get it. I left the tech industry to become a director at a yoga company. And I really wanted the job, and I was like, okay. And it wasn't, it was 10,000 less than I had journaled. And I was like, that's weird. This is the first time my method didn't work. But I forgot about it, and I just enjoyed the job. And then 2 weeks later, he called me totally out of the blue, and he said, I can already tell you're the best hire I've ever made. I'm raising your salary by $10,000. And he raised it to the number that I had journaled. So like there's been so many little examples and stories like that in my life. And life is a game. It's fun. I think of it as like you're entering this video game world where you get to pick your avatar, you pick your parents you're going to be born to, you pick some big life circumstances, and then they all set the soil, ready the seeds, plant the soil, ready the soil, plant the seeds, and then it's up to you if you grow, right? And as you're having fun with this, and you're assembling your dream life and your relationship and your career, and you're vibrating and working off this frequency of joy and gratitude and excitement, more things on those frequencies get sent to you. And life really can be very fun. And even when you go through challenges and adversities, like I said before, there's always little Easter eggs hidden in them. And once you discover them, you get to level up and grow. And yeah, it's a fun journey.
I love that. And I think they're so easy to get caught up. And I've done it a lot in my entrepreneurial journey. I mean, I spent 35 years in the corporate world, right? I never had any ambitions to be a business owner, but life threw me a curveball, and I caught the ball and went on this journey, which was lovely. But that was like, losing a job, or you can lose a partner, or, whatever, can't you? And that's when something, not necessarily bad, but mostly it seems bad at the time, doesn't it? But it's what you do with that afterwards, isn't it? Whether you decide to let it take over your life in a negative way, or you transform your life like I did. But I think as we uncover different things about ourselves, I mean, for me, I uncovered that my limiting beliefs were that I wasn't good enough and I wasn't worthy enough to do what I could do. And I don't get me wrong, I had a pretty good career still, but once I'd unstuck myself, shall we say, that's when I started to say yes to things, and that's when different doors started to open, And as I say, I never anticipated having my own business. I never anticipated writing a book. I never anticipated doing any of this. I didn't even do social media, never alone doing interviews and being interviewed. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just like laugh at myself, not in a really horrible way, but just as the fact that, oh my God, I can't believe you've been doing that. I can't believe you. Yeah, and it's kind of laughable in a nice way, but it just goes to prove that when you put your mind to things, you can become unstoppable, which is where the tagline to all of this came about. Yeah, and it's just exciting seeing people do it, isn't it? Don't you think? And do you know what I mean when I say about laughing at yourself?
Yeah, I mean, and I love that because you hold it all lightly, right? Because we tend to like, take life so seriously, like, oh, it's life, but like, yeah, it's also just life, right? Like yeah, you can take everything lightly, and being able to laugh at yourself is important.
Yeah, and I think being in a solo entrepreneur, there's been times as well where I got to get this done, got to get this done. Oh my God, and oh, I'm going to work Saturday and I'm going to work Sunday because I just got so much to do. But if you carry on doing that, A, it's not that productive, but B, you've got to have fun. And I've had times when I've like gone, oh, why am I not earning enough money? Why am I not doing it? Da, 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 da. And actually, it's because I've not been enjoying what I've been doing, and that's what I was here to do. So you do have to kind of pull yourself back into play, don't you, sometimes? And I think you said earlier, I'm not perfect. I'm not, you're going to do things wrong and fall off the wagon, so to speak. But it's about getting yourself back on and enjoying life again, isn't it? And now that you've got a young child, that's a great way of doing that, because it's so much fun watching them. And I say this to people sometimes, and I don't say this in a weirdo kind of way, but bear with me. You're going to wonder what I'm going to say now. But I think it's always good to sit and watch kids play, because their imagination has no bounds, is it? There's nothing holding them back. And most people that have had kids, that maybe the child wanted this amazing doll or car or something, and at Christmas it's the most amazing thing. You feel so happy that you've given them what they wanted, and then they open it, throw their toy over there and play with the box, and then that becomes their spaceship or something like that. The power of their imagination at such a young age is phenomenal. And I think sitting back and enjoying watching your son play, I just think you'll learn so much just from that, actually.
I love that. And one thing that I love about being a parent is I am so in the present moment when I'm with him.
Mm.
Right? Like and I don't even like worry about my own stuff. Like I'm just there with him, and he's in the present moment. So it makes me be in the present moment, and that's such a gift. And I think our kids are our biggest teachers for sure. So I'm excited for the rest of his life to see what else he gets to show me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And a lot of us, and we've all been guilty of it probably. We're all on these all the time.
Yeah.
And you see them when you're out, and there'll be a mum pushing a kid in the pram or something, and she's chatting away, or they're in the park and they go, oh God, because they're not paying attention. And it's about, we've got to stop this. We've got to bring society back to where we are in the present moment. And when we do start acknowledging and having that emotional intelligence, as we were talking about earlier, that being in the present moment is so important, because then we can listen to our body and we can feel, and then we can ask ourselves questions, and we can start really living our lives by our heart rather than our head just ruling everything.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to like just carving out time, even if it's like 10 minutes, to just be still and be quiet and just like quiet everything down. Because like you said, like it's so easy to be like, oh, I have this to do and that to do and that to do. And like, I'm guilty of it too. Like in our modern world, especially when we're running businesses and have family and all these other obligations, it's easy to just kind of get wrapped up
Mm.
in it all. And studies even show that just like 15 minutes a day of bringing yourself down into a parasympathetic nervous state can counter all of that like sympathetic, like
Mm.
high energy, like high cortisol state that we often find ourselves in.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
it's a continuous journey like that nowadays, isn't it? We don't everything. Everybody wants everything instantly. We don't want to work for anything. We don't want to take time for anything. Like if we want to lose weight, we want to lose it now, don't we? If we want to, I don't know, make money, we want to make it now. And it's all about just taking time. I'm reading listen. Well, I say reading loosely. I also like audiobooks. I'm reading one at the moment called The Slight Edge. I don't know if you've ever read that one, but that's really interesting because it's about layering, and this is what happens with our old trapped feelings and emotions, and it's a little bit like compound interest where it just builds and builds and builds. But the stories in the book are all about, you can't have everything instantly. It's about setting the groundwork, and it's about doing that little bit, taking action. So as a business owner, it's like every day just taking, even if that's 1%, that 1%, that 1%, that 1%, that 1% soon becomes 10, 20, 30, 40, doesn't it? And it's that gradual build. And let's get out of our heads. Like if you want to lose weight, or oh, I went to the gym 3 times, why have I not lost all that weight? Well, because it doesn't work like that. You have to go consistently, regularly, for quite a long period of time. In the same way, it takes a minimum of 21 days to change a habit, because you've got to start reprogramming your brain. So I just think if people can hear this even and just take that on board, like you said earlier about little nuggets of information, just stop and just listen, go for a walk and just listen to the birds, and watch the bees and watch the butterflies and watch the kids playing. But obviously be a bit careful, because you've got to be careful watching children, but but just start enjoying yourself, really, innit? And just stop taking life so seriously sometimes.
yeah, and I like that idea of just like the small increments too. Like,
Mm,
'cause I just gave a workshop last night, and this is what I was talking about, is like taking action, but like never underestimate the power of a small step, right?
mm,
From like one small step, the right people can find you on your path. You might be in the position to get your dream life. You might be able to heal what can be healed, or you'll find that next tool, right? Doors can unlock. And it's that idea of like, okay, if you think about like a 1%, like it's not that much when it's like right here, but then like as it angles out, it gets wider and wider, right?
mhm.
So yeah, you just made me think of that. It's like it, just doing a little bit of change can get you so far, and then you're more motivated too, right? And you
Mm,
get to ride that momentum, that high. And then as soon as like fear and doubt comes in, like that momentum comes to a screeching halt. So it's like keeping yourself in that state of like
mm.
momentum and drive and passion for what you're doing. And I think as you start to see results, that it becomes easier to stay in that place.
Yeah, in the same way, if you're going to climb a mountain or run a marathon, you don't just get up one day and just run 26.2 miles or whatever it is, do you? You have to start off with a mile at a time, but doing a run, doing a walk. Next time, you just run for a bit longer than you did walking. And each time, you're just gradually increasing how long you're running for. And then before you know it, I mean, I don't like running, so it's probably a bad example for me, but
I don't either.
um, before you know it, you might be running a 5K, and next thing you're running a 10K, and then you're doing a half marathon. But it doesn't happen overnight, and it's about putting the effort in and keep pushing yourself just that little bit every single day.
Yep. And also I just want to add to that, I'm a really big fan of having really big dreams, like really big goals, because, and quantum physics even backs this up, like
Mm,
every possible reality exists out there in a state of rest. Everything you can imagine and everything you can't, it's just out there waiting for you to choose it. So nothing is impossible. Like the only thing that limits you is your own beliefs, your
mm,
own doubts. So I want people to dream big. I want them to have really big goals. And then you start by taking action steps towards that goal. And there's always something you can do today to lead you one step closer to that dream. And again, like, don't underestimate the power of a small step. Maybe it's, if you wanted a career change, maybe you start looking at other jobs, or you take a course, or, whatever it is. But there's always something you can do with the tools you have available, and then trust as you keep going that new tools will lend themselves to you. So yes, I agree with everything you were saying, that like it's one step at a time, but also like I don't want people to limit their overall big dream, because like we live in an intelligent universe that knows how to give us whatever it is we want. And as humans, we tend to overcomplicate things. We think we have to go from A to B to C, or we have to make $100,000 this year to make 200,000 next year. But the universe knows how to bring us from A to Z, or how to bring us from 0 to 1,000,000, because it can move mountains, right? It can, doors that didn't even exist can appear and unlock for you. So it's about taking action steps. It's about having that big vision, but it's also about like trusting that like you might not know how it's going to come to you, right?
Yeah, and that's so true, isn't it? It's about, okay, this is your ultimate goal. Like, you want to, maybe, I don't know, as an example, you might want to go traveling, but you don't have to say specifically where you're going to go. You don't have to know when you're going to go, and you don't have to plan it to that nth degree, do you? You just have to put it out there. And that I think is a learning curve, and it's about maybe trying that on small things first, isn't it? And proving them.
Totally.
Because otherwise, if you set too big a one, then it doesn't pan off, because you haven't. Because sometimes it's a lot to do with whether you actually believe it inside as well, isn't it? Like, if you can consciously want something, but if your subconscious mind doesn't agree with it, then the chances of you pulling it off are going to be more limited, aren't they? And I think the trusting part is the hardest part, isn't it? Trusting that it's going to be okay, and yeah, money will come, or whatever it is that you're after.
Yeah. So yes, you nailed it, because 95% of our mind is our subconscious and unconscious mind, and only 5% of our day we are like consciously creating. So you could actually be sabotaging yourself 95% of the time by your unconscious beliefs. So that's why it's great to work with a hypnotherapist or a coach, or whoever, to reprogram all that, because luckily you can reprogram it, but sometimes it takes like bringing the unconscious to the conscious, so you know what those limiting beliefs are. Like you said, yours was unworthiness, and you probably didn't know that until you did the work. So yeah, and then just also I wanted to highlight what you said, starting with little things. Like, you can make it a game. You can, like, the journaling exercise I talked about, like I would just do little things for fun. I'd be like, today a 3-legged orange cat is going to cross my path. And then I would just put it out there, and then it would happen.
No.
And then, or I'd be like, I'm going to see a green car missing a door, like just weird stuff. And like, I would start off with like smaller things, like, oh, I'm going to see like a Dalmatian today or something. But like, I would, as they start to happen, and you start to believe in this power you have more and more, you can have more and more fun with it, and it just builds your confidence with it. So, because there's no difference in manifesting a milkshake or a house. The only difference is your mind, is your doubts, is your, and right now, if you're listening to this and you're like, that's bullshit, that's
there will
your
be
limiting
people saying
belief.
that, yeah.
That's your limiting belief talking. So that really is, once you do that work, you realize it's all energy. It's all energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, atoms are invisible spinning vortexes. If you tried to look at an atom under a microphone or a microscope, you would see a void, because atoms aren't tangible. It's spinning vortexes of invisible energy. Like the wind, when it picks up some leaves and makes them spin, it's like that without the leaves. So we're all made of atoms. Everything is made of atoms. Everything is energy. Thoughts are energy. We live in a really cool universe.
Yeah. Oh my God, I could talk to you all night. This is amazing. We might need to do another one another time, because we're just touching on the real exciting stuff. But we need to start wrapping up now. But I just wanted to do a little shout out, whether it's your book, whatever you want to have a quick minute or two on before we finish.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. You can connect with me. My website is krisashley.net. Change Your Mind with Kris is my handle on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Kris is spelled with a K. My book is called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's in paperback, ebook, audiobook. Change Your Mind with Kris Ashley is my podcast. Beyond Reality is my TV show. And come connect. Come say hi. Thank you so much, Julie. It
Oh,
was
it's
such a
been
pleasure.
adorable having you on here. Yeah, and I'll put obviously on the social medias, I can tag you in, and on the YouTube channel, I can put all this information on there for you. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been really interesting. I feel like, as I say, there's a lot more conversation to come, isn't there? But yeah, so as I said about my YouTube channel, Millieside Therapy and Coaching, that's where you can see all my interviews on there. I'm mainly Millieside Therapy and Coaching, apart from Instagram for some reason, which is Julie Millieside. But come and find us if you're interested in working with either of us, or you want to find out more, then just reach out to us and we'll happily have a conversation. So thank you for watching. Thanks, Kris, once again for coming. I've really enjoyed myself. And I look forward to seeing you all next when I have another amazing guest for you. And if you know anyone, or you're someone who's got an amazing story and I think might be interesting to share, then do reach out to me as well. Always looking for a new guest. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much, and goodbye.